Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Ge Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Wednesday, August 13th. We're going to talk some defensive line today, Jamie, because I think if people were to rank Notre Dame's units on the football team, I think defensive line would be on kind of the lower end, especially the interior. I think it would be the lower end of the rankings. And I think people are probably thinking if Notre Dame has an Achilles heel on their defense, it's going to be the interior defensive line. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. I know this is your area, right? This is Yama's. You played D-line at Idaho State. You're the consigliere of D-line play. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about linebackers. We're going to talk about quarterbacks, of course, because we're always going to talk about quarterbacks because it's very topical.
Are, Sid Irish. Don't get ready for it. We're talking about quarterbacks.
We're talking about quarterbacks, Sid Irish. We're doing it. All right. But there's tons of context to go into these conversations. And then we're going to talk Sid Irish. By the way, you put something out in the chat before the show started. We're going to talk some captains right off the top. So we're going to do that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit that like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast, as always, are in the description below. And the show, of course, is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now's the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ's master tailors combine next-level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms both downtown Chicago and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment and receive 10% off your entire purchase. All right, let's just do a captain poll right now, me and you. Drake Bowen, you got him as a captain, Jamie?
Yeah, to me, he's an obvious choice.
We got Drake Bowen as captain. What do you think about a Don Schuler?
A Don Schuler, I think there's a good chance, but I think it's tough. I wonder if we're going to get one in the secondary this year. So that would be if he would be the choice if it's someone in the secondary. But I don't know if it's a slam dunk that he's going to get it because I don't know how it's going to work, because it's kind of like when you're captain, I'm sure he is like going to be like technically the captain of the secondary for all, extensive purposes, but I don't know if like he's seen as like that leader on the team yet, like just totally on the defense. So to me, he's a definite maybe.
Definite maybe. I think the other probably lock on the team would be Jeremiah Love, right? I think the coaches would want to get him involved in that. He's the best player on the football team. You usually want that. He's a junior, right? So he doesn't have the youth thing going on. But the best player on the football team, he's a huge component of why this team will be successful. He's going to be a huge focal point of the entire offense. You think Jeremiah Love's a lock there, Jamie?
I think he's it's a lock, I think.
Okay. Let's throw out Emil Wagner. You think Emil Wagner?
Will Magner is 100% a lock for me.
You think he's a lock for you? Okay.
Yeah. Just because everything that when you hear him talk and how other people kind of talk about him too, and how he talks about the younger players, how he mentors the younger players, how he talks about, Coach Rudolph and the coaching staff, like he carries himself like a captain. And there's just some guys that are like, hey, when it's their time, they are going to be a captain. Where I think like Billy Schrauth is one of those guys where he sets a tone in terms of like what he's doing right now at practice in terms of like his intensity. Mm-hmm. But Wagner, I don't know if Billy Schrauth is the one because you got to go up and nominate yourself and talk for the team. And Wagner has said like, I'm going to do that. And I think he will be. I think it's a slam dunk. He's a captain.
Yeah. Emil Wagner led the team in snaps last year. The entire team. 3 more snaps from scrimmage than Xavier Watts had on defense. So That really bodes well, right? He's playing a premium position. He's playing the tackle spot. He's, like you said, I said he led the team in snaps. He's frontline player, right? So he's a guy you can count on week after week there. So we think Jeremiah Love, Emil Wagner. We think Drake Bowen. Who is a fourth guy? You said Adon Schuler is up there. Who do you think is a fourth guy who could compete for it?
I think Josh Burnham is possibly one, just because he's a guy who really kind of sets a tone in terms of like his work ethic, and the fact that he was a guy who was a natural captain throughout his high school career too. Like he was that dude. Like he was the quarterback. Like he was that leader for his high school program, and he's always been a guy that they've kind of talked about like as like a potential to be that. So I think him. I mean, I would say my other candidate on the D line would maybe be Donovan Heinisch.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure if he would be like want it. But he's absolutely a guy who's like a leader type that would do it. And you know what? And Isaac K brought up Greathouse. Greathouse, I easily could be a captain too. I don't know if he'll go up and step up in front of the team. I don't know. Maybe he will. I mean, certainly he's a guy who carries himself like, and everything he does is like, I don't care if he's a captain or not. He's a leader on the team. I think the whole thing of it is that it just depends how many captains they have, but they probably got like 7-8 guys that I think would all be like good captain candidates. And really, as like, you know, people are saying in the chat too, it's got to be a good player. Like you can't just be a guy who's like rah. There's a lot of guys who are rah.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like that doesn't matter if you're not consistent. There's not a level of consistency and a level of trust there from that the players respect, that the coaches respect. And I think there's easily like 7-8 guys.
Sid Irish, Goograt nominations.
Oh,
he's
Pauling?
referring to Will Pauling. Yeah, sleeping in the goo.
Mean, I probably not, just because he's a new guy, and I don't get me wrong. I think he'll be he's a culture setter guy on the team, but I don't know how good. There's a lot of great stuff and talk about him. I don't know how good he is going to be this year in terms of like, he might be the 4th leading receiver on the team.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I would say it's a possibility. But I would say he would be more of a sleeper pick for me, just because you're a new guy, and it's not like when the new guy's a quarterback, it's different.
Yeah. Last one I think is possible, and it's a sleeper pick for me because I think there's a time on the field element to this, is Eli Raridan. He is a senior. He has been around for a long time. He's set to have a very major role on the football team, but usually you want it to be a guy who's played a little bit more than he has going into it, right? For him, it would be play this year, play next year. Next year is the time for him to be captain. That's usually how it works, but it's possible, right? I don't want to dismiss it out of hand, because I do think it's possible, just because of that position is very important at Notre Dame, and he's an upperclassman, right? And there's, you know, I don't want to say younger, because Ty Washington isn't actually young, but he is new to the program, and then everyone else is kind of younger, you know, going into it. So that's possible as well. Drake Bowen, I just want to point out, like, and I have to find the clip to pat myself on the back. I did an interview with him like when he was not even on campus yet. And I talked to him, and just sometimes you just have a feeling about a guy. And after the interview, I think on the next show or very quickly after that, I was like, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a 2-year captain and this is a 3-year starter. And we are on track for that, right? Like it just seemed, and there, look, Jalen Sneed was in his class, and Junior Chileamaka was in his class, and Jaden Osbury was in his class. Like, there were other options, but you just have a feeling about the type of person that he is and the type of competitor that he is. He's never failed at anything. And here he is. He's going to be a captain this year. He is going to be, if he doesn't leave, which I don't think he will. just because of the position. It's not a position that usually goes pro early, and he's not doesn't have those crazy physical
early.
traits. Yeah, and
you gotta really like hate school and just.
And by the way, I don't think that's true. I think he likes being the middle linebacker at Notre Dame, and I think he likes being a captain. And obviously, staying in school and nowadays is a little bit different than it used to be, right? In terms of you get compensated pretty well now for staying in school. So Drake Bowen, right? Like the signs were there even when he was still in high school. We mentioned Josh Burnham. We did mention Donovan Heinisch. Let's talk about the defensive line right now, Jamie. I think that the latest practice reports show that across the board, or at least on the interior, Onye and Heinisch figure to be the top interior guys. And I think last year at this time, if we had told you that, I think people that there would have been genuine concern that went around about that, right? Like they don't see them. I don't think fans see them as frontline players. I don't know, frankly, that I would have seen them as frontline players at this time last year. Obviously, there was a lot of growth from Donovan Heinisch because of injuries. He performed very, very well in the playoffs. His numbers are very good from an analytics standpoint and in terms of total pressures and things like that. We'll get into that. And Onye, who had flashed early in the year, obviously had to step away from the team due to some mental health stuff. They're set to be the frontline guys. Is there reason for fans to be a little bit hesitant on how to feel about them just from, this is going to be a top 5 defense, top 5, top 10 defense with those two in the interior? How do you think about it right now?
I think fans should actually be excited that those are the two guys that have stepped forward based on what we saw from both of them last year, because I think the one thing with Onye coming back was, well, where's he going to be at? Like, is he going to be kind of like close to the level that he was playing at? Because for those that don't know, he was playing at an extremely high level before. Like the switch had been turned on, he made the leap, whatever you want to say, however you want to label it. That's what was happening with him. So he had a 42.9% win rate versus true pass sets. For those that don't know what true pass sets, it's a standard drop back without play action, without quick game, without screens. So it's like a pass rush opportunity that's a true pass rush opportunity, right? Because obviously not many people are gonna win on a screen pass or whatever, right? Like, so it gives like a good reflection, and these are PFF numbers, right? This is a good reflection of how much a guy wins. 42.9% is insane. And I know it's a smaller sample size because it was only 5 games.
Yeah.
But I don't care what it is. If you do that over 5 games, that means he was playing at an incredibly high level. And in his last 3 games, he had, he had 10 pressures in those games, and he had 2.5 half plays. He blocked a field goal. He was disruptive. Yes. Purdue and, was mixed in there. So was Louisville. He played really good in that Louisville game. And I think if he's come in and he's like taken the starting spot, because Jared Dawson is a good player. Like, he's a good player. And not that it would have been bad if he was a starter, but I think it says something that, like, oh, he beat him out, and he beat Rubio, you are going to get a baseline of. Where the floor is with Rubio, and it's very high as a run defender. Not that high as a pass rusher, but very high as a run defender. If Onye's winning a starting job, that means he is playing much better as a run defender. And he's still probably showing a lot of that, what he's shown last year in terms of his pass rush. And frankly, one of the things that stood out when we had the one open practice in the spring, not the blue goal game, the actual open practice, where they had the scrimmage, was him like walking back Charles Juggesaw, like that Zane Durant from Penn State didn't do that. The only time he did that was when he got the legal hands to the face to him. That wasn't what was happening with Onye. Onye was like, had Juggesaw on skates. That's a big man to have on skates that doesn't happen to him. Which shows that, like, hey, that wasn't a fluke. That wasn't just him doing it against, Purdue. By the way, Purdue one of their starting guards that he was doing that to is a guy who might start for USC this year. So that is a really, really good sign, I think, for him. He would have been right now, if he would have played the whole year, people would have been saying, well, how good can he be? Like, where can he be in terms of an NFL draft pick, whatever. And he's got a chance to play himself the NFL draft pick. He's got to play the full year, and he's going to have less film than everybody else, but he is a dude. And I think that's the thing. If he's playing at a level of consistency, that is a very, very positive thing. And I think with Heinisch, I think a lot of people just get stuck on the size, similar to what they did with Howard Cross. Yeah. And I don't think, Heinisch isn't a guy who can play 50 snaps a game. I don't think so. Right. Like, I just think, that is going to be tough to do. But one, I saw him against Georgia. They had 3 guys going day 2 of the NFL draft on their interior. He was able to hold up pretty good at the point of attack in that game against those guys. That was very impressive. He got a lot more opportunities in the CFP because of the injuries. Like, obviously Cross had the, ankle he was playing with for pretty much that whole time. And then Mills went out against Indiana. So the defensive tackle with the most pressures during the CFP was Texas's Vernon Browden, who was a 3rd-round pick. He had 8 pressures. Heinisch had 7, which is tied for second with Ohio State's Tyleik Williams, who was a 1st-round pick, and Ty Hamilton. 15.2% pass rush run rate was second only to Browden. Against true pass rush sets, Heinisch's win rate 21.1%, second only to Derek Harmon from Oregon during the CFP, who, by the way, was a 1st-round pick. I'm not saying that this makes him a 1st-round. I'm saying he was playing at the level of a 1st-round pick. I'm not even saying the guy's going to play in the NFL. He's probably too small. He's probably not going to play in the NFL.
Right.
But he can play. Trust me, he'll get in a camp and he'll be like, who is this guy? Like, he's already proven that, at Notre Dame. I didn't think he was going to be able to play at Notre Dame. I was like, wow. Once I saw him in person, I thought, man, I just think he's too small because he's not, Kurt is a lot bigger than him. Kurt was probably like 20 more pounds than him.
Yeah. I mean, he's pushing 300. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a guy who can play at a really, really high level. Is he a guy that you want to have out there for, that many plays? No, all of it. But I think it makes sense that he's a starter because he can be a very disruptive guy. He's also incredibly good with the movement stuff that they do in terms of like stunts and slanting and all that kind of stuff. He's really, really good in that area.
Plus, like, there's he did it at the highest level, like he's not going to be like when you're talking about, because I think a big part of this is wondering about a position group like the interior, like, because they have Miami and they have Texas A&M to open season, right? And then they're 2 big games of the year. And like, he just played against Indiana in the playoffs in the 1st round. Then he played Georgia. Then he played Penn State. Then he played Ohio State. Like, these are the best teams you can face, And so, like, you like the fact that, like, man, he can go in there and do it, There's just no questions. Like, people might question the upside or whatever, but then when you imagine, it's like, okay, he's got to go play in these big games. Like, you trust him, right? John Bryce talked about trust a ton. We talk about trust a ton. Like, this is where it's like you have the ultimate trust of everybody, not just the coaches, but your teammates too. They know you're going to perform, and that's an important thing, right? Which kind of goes along to why he could be a captain, right? Like, because when everyone trusts you like that and everyone believes in you, that's the sort of thing that lends itself. You don't have to be a rah-rah guy. Back to Onye real quick. Are you concerned at all about kind of the thing with happened to Botelho? And I know 2 years ago we thought Botelho was going to kind of blow up. We suspect he was banged up, right? So it wasn't, he had a really good bowl game against South Carolina. We thought the next year that would translate into huge numbers. His numbers were great, especially in that bowl game. And then at the end of the year, it's kind of similar to Onye, it was a small sample size. Then he came back and didn't have that big of a year. We think he was banged up. So there's a caveat there.
Oh, and he definitely was banged up.
Yeah. And so there's also a loss of confidence that goes along with that. But the overall point is there any concern on your part that, going from a reserve role like he had when it's like you're backing up Cross or you're backing up Mills, and now you're the main guy. Like, are you a little bit? Are you? I don't want to say concerned. Are you something you're monitoring? This is a little bit more likely for him than it would be someone else.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think there is that because you always look at sample size and what that means and how that can kind of mislead you.
Mm-hmm.
But I was already seeing signs that it was kind of happening before that. So that's what at least gives me confidence. I think, him coming back from, what he came back from with his mental health and stuff, that is always going to be a worry. Like, you're hoping that he's doing okay. Everything's going there too. Like, because guess what? You're going to deal with adversity during the season.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing more snaps too, the chances that you're going to have to be banged up and play through that. I don't know if he's ever really had to play through that.
Yeah,
right. Where, so that's something. Yeah, it is something he's not going to have a 40 something % win rate, like over the course of the season. You worry about someone doing that on a consistent basis. And I think that is like a legitimate something to think about. But I think the upside is, obviously still there. And then I think you feel better because I think the depth there is solid, like really solid. Like, I think Jared Dawson is a good player and he's going to be he's going to be a guy that can come in and play. He can start. He could be a starter. Rubio can be a very high level 2-down player. He's not a 3-down, but guess what? They're not going to need him on 3 downs anyways. Right. So it's just, that's the thing. And it's like, you're going to play certain games where I'm sure Anye and Heinisch will have way more snaps than a Rubio would, but there's other games where I could see Rubio playing a lot more because it depends on the opponent and who you're playing. Right. And, I don't know. And frankly too, I'm really like intrigued by like guys like Elijah Hughes and Mookum and these guys too, and where they're going to be, because I think you really need 6 guys in there. Obviously they needed it last year with all they had. So I'm interested to kind of see where all those guys are at and what that kind of translates to. I'm excited about the defensive line.
Oh, it's interesting when you were talking about, like, because I was going to transition to the next two, which is Rubio and Hughes. Like, if I knew that those were the 2 guys going into it, like at the start, like it's like, oh, those are the second team is going to Rubio and Hughes. Like, I like that second team, right? And I like Hughes and Mookum as the guys after them, right? Like 5, 6. So like you said, the depth you feel good about, right? It's just a question of like, how high is that initial level? And are they just kind of place setters for the other guys? And it's like, they're all kind of the same level, or do the starters, Onye and Heinisch, have a little bit more than those second team guys? You don't want a ton more, because like, that Hughes and Rubio are going to play. They're going to play a lot, right? And so it remains to be seen how much Mookum and Hughes are able to play. But you love the 6, right? Like, I love that 6. Like, I think if we were to rate the 6 guys going into kind of every year, I think this 6 would be pretty high up there in terms of, year over year. It's just a question of how high that initial line is and how much that can be. I want to kind of ask you too, how much the defensive ends help out with the interior guys, because we talk a lot about, safeties can affect corners and corners can affect safeties, and how those 2 groups kind of mesh together. I'm wondering how much, Notre Dame's got really good defensive ends, right? Whether it be Boubacar Traore, whether it be Bryce Young, whether it be Josh Burnham, whether it be Junior Tuihalamaka, right? Like, they have a bunch of guys. Jordan Botelho when he gets back, right? Maybe Logan Thomas when he's kind of getting into the mix there. How much do those defensive ends help out the interior? Because I don't think anyone is concerned about Notre Dame's upside on the outside. I mean, they could be one of the top defensive end groups in the entire country. So how do those 2 groups kind of marry together and help each other out?
I mean, obviously you're going to run a lot of like games and stuff up front. So that's a big part of it. And I also think that's part of why, what makes Heinisch good. Like if you're playing straight up every time, you're not asking that guy to two gap, right? You're not asking him to be a two gap player. You're not asking him to be Lewis Nix. And it's a very, very, different thing. It's kind of like with Howard Cross. It's like, if you run a defense and you have a scheme that suits your personnel and suits those guys, then he's going to have success. If you try to play like Georgia and you're going to say, okay, well, we're going to play mostly like a lot of like, 3 down, that guy's going to be lining a 4-eye, which is inside, shade of the tackle. Like that guy's not good. Heinisch isn't going to do that and be good at that because he's not, 300 pounds and 6'5", 300, like some of those guys they have. It has to fit your scheme and all that. And I think how the defensive ends are going to help, like, I mean, they could certainly help in the run game, but I think also like in the pass rush part of it is that Notre Dame didn't have a situation last year. You saw it at the beginning of the year, where I don't know. There's obviously some like my random Miami guy in here saying how good Miami is. Congrats to that guy. Like, get a life and watch a Miami podcast, buddy. Like, come on, I hate these guys. Get out of here. Who are these people that time?
Like you said, the fans are very confident. It's like, well, the fans don't have to tackle. The fans don't have to tackle Jeremiah.
They should be, but like why do you come in and talk crap about other? Like, get out of here. Just listen to the podcast, buddy. But in terms of the defensive ends, like we saw Boubacar Traore and Botello at the beginning of last year, and those guys kind of like working together on sub packages and what that looked like, and it looked really good. Like that is something that they couldn't even really do last year because they didn't have that and they didn't feel good enough about who they had there, and now they can, because I think Bryce Young. So Bryce Young obviously was a freshman. He showed a lot of flashes, all that, but he wasn't that good of a player as a freshman because he was a freshman. Like he had a 6.6% win rate in true pass sets, which is obviously not good, but very typical for a freshman. He's going to make a big jump this year. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar, but he is going to be much better, and he's going to have plays that people are going to be like, wow. And Boubacar might just be, a completely different level. Things where when there's everyone, when you're playing on a defensive line, if one guy whips his guy, that sets everybody else up. And it's always say like there's havoc and then there's like havoc assists. It's like you blew up this guy and then the other guy cleaned it up. That makes it easier for all of those guys. That makes the linebacker's job better. And I just think you're just going to see a lot more havoc from the defensive ends. And then also like stronger level of play of like Bryce Young's going to be a way better run defender than he was last year. Burnham was already a good run defender. He's going to be a way better. Uyeyama is very solid there. And like Boubacar is the kind of guy. So I'm really interested in the Boubacar versus Francis Mauiaga in that matchup, because Mauiaga is obviously going to be like a first round pick. He's getting a ton of things, but he's a guy who really like steps out and like is very aggressive in his set. And to me, that is the worst kind of guy against Boubacar, because he is so good and so like slippery in terms of what he can do laterally. And I think that's the kind of thing where like if you overset, Boubacar can go inside, make an inside move and not get beat outside still. He's and that is a rare thing for so many guys. And that's the kind of thing too, where always say like, hey, you're not allowed to be wrong unless you make the play. Like you have an assignment unless you can make the play. Boubacar is the kind of guy who he can be wrong, but he'll make the play. And I think they're just like that kind of thing does make everybody better. And if you got a guy who's wrong and he doesn't make the play, that makes everybody worse. But you get a guy who can do that kind of consistently, man, that can really, really make things better.
Are you worried about they're kind of the Mitchell Evans had the they were careful with him in the preseason, and then in camp, and then he didn't really get going until kind of the middle of the year. Are you worried about that at all with Boubacar?
Not from the sense that I think he certainly won't play as much early on as he's going to later. But no, because I think they're going to make sure that, hey, it's pass rush time, like he's out there. And that it's because of that I'm not, and that's where he can make the biggest impact. It just is. So, and frankly, Uyeyama might be better, like as a first down player than him or something, right? Like just right now, but he's not. There's no comparison on third down of what they can do, right? So I think from that perspective, I don't think it's that big of a thing because you can save a guy like that, and I mean certainly too. The other thing is that like if you feel really good about Logan Thomas as like a third down guy, that takes some heat off too. And man, I'm really, really interested in like Botello and when he's going to be back. Not that I think he's going to be back for these early games. I don't. But like, man, I'm telling you, Greg, he looked fantastic.
Who knows? Like I who can say, right? Like who before camp, would everyone have said he's doing what he's doing? Like no one would have predicted that. I have no idea. Like I would not be shocked if he went out there against Miami. There's no intel that suggests that he would. Like you said, chances are not. But why is he doing any of this? I don't know. He obviously has something there. I think they could be careful with him too. Like you don't want to be dumb. Like don't be dumb, right? And get out there too soon, and then it's like you lose the whole year, right? But yeah, to your point, like it's going to be a lot sooner than we I think anyone anticipated, which is obviously great for him. And that's like a wild card, right? Logan Thomas, wild card. And this says nothing of the fact that they can use KVA in that situation. They could bump Bryce Young inside on pass rush situations. Like if they could do that, you got KVA, you got Jalen Sneed, Drake Bowen's talking about coming off the edge a little bit more. So Notre Dame has a lot of options in that regard, which is good. Right, like that's what you want. You want to supplement the inside guys and get your best on the field. Jamie, if you find yourself and you're saying I don't have a lot going on, I'm gonna go to an opposing team's podcast and kind of troll them. You could do that, or you could spend your time in more productive ways. Like maybe find like some pickleball. Like maybe find a pickleball court out there. And if you're doing that in the Mishawaka area, and you're saying I could either go play pickleball or I could troll another opponent podcast, then maybe choose pickleball. And that choice for you should be H2 Pickleball, founded by alum Todd Hill, is teaming with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howells, who's a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring Notre Dame fans to the Notre Dame Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what better way to connect and engage Notre Dame fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. The first event will be a tournament before the Purdue game with medal rounds played on campus. A portion of the proceeds will go to the Rockney Athletics Fund to support our student athletes. Contact Todd at h2pickleball.com or 574-339-5195 to join the league. And be sure to visit the H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball, the H2 Pickleball facility is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka. H2 Pickleball. All right, Jamie, I want to talk about the linebackers really quick because I feel like how good is this group for you kind of historically, right? When you look at Bowen, KVA, Jalen Sneed, Jaden Osbury, I feel like these are all kind of all-American caliber players. Not that any of them are actually going to be all-Americans. I do think Drake Bowen has a chance. I do think KVA has a chance. Shoot, Jalen Sneed has a chance. How good is this group in your mind? I mean, we're talking like top of college football right now. Like how good do you feel like they can be? Because I feel like there's a lot of upside with these guys, and they've got the experience from last year as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could be the best one in college football this year, but I think, obviously that has to come to fruition on the field. But I would say, like, coming into the season, I would put them as a top 5 group. I'm sure that there's not many other teams that you would choose to say if you put 4 against it. Maybe some other people have a more proven top 2. I think like Pitt, for example, has like two guys coming back that are both like coming off monster seasons. And their third guy who's coming back too, who was like a guy who split with another Mike linebacker. I mean, he had a pretty monster season too. Like Pitt is probably, just in terms of production, those guys would be deservedly at the top or whatever you could say. But I think, I mean, historically, I think it's just one of those things. It's impossible to say until they get out and they become that, and you have to be able to see it. But I do think that, like you said, all of those guys, and I mean, I would say even Osbury too, like he has a chance. They all have a chance to be like top level guys. And it's so rare to have that, where, because if you just look at, say, like 2023 and Bertrand and Marist and Kaiser, like those are three NFL players. They all got drafted in the NFL, like good, very, very good football players. This 4 is better than that 3 in terms of like upside and what they have to be able to play at a certain level. But I think that is definitely on the table. And I think that should be the expectation, that they're going to be at that level. And I think you're just going to see a lot more playmaking from that group. I think KVA probably just isn't talked about enough in terms of what kind of jump he's going to have this year. And if like Bowen wasn't around, I don't think KVA would ever leave the field. You know what I mean? Like, I think he'd be a guy who you'd be like, wow. Because I really think he can be a superstar. I think he can be an absolute superstar. And, and Max Bullis spoke about like kind of all the different things that he can do and the way he can bend and all he can do as a pass rusher. And I just think there's just so much like room for him to grow. And he's already like so further ahead than anyone. Like, it's just like Bullis said too. It's insane that a guy was that ready to play. It just never happens. At linebacker might be the hardest spot. Linebacker, safety on defense, physically, like from a mental perspective, incredibly difficult to play those, which is why you just don't see too many KVAs or Kyle Hamiltons. You don't see it. That's why, like, and not to say like Jadon Blair might be just unbelievable at Notre Dame. The reason why it's really hard, and then he hasn't, no one's talking about Jadon Blair like getting into that mix, is because it's just really hard for a freshman to get that, because it takes so much mentally to be the guy when it's like one mistake could blow everything up, or you got to be the communicator and you got to have all this command there. And usually that takes time. And I think that is the thing where you're already seeing, where you saw like Bowen ahead of schedule, right? KVA ahead of schedule. And now really like a guy like Snead is really finally at that point where you're like, oh, this is why he was a 5-star. And this is what's that thing is. And it's like, maybe it won't be 3 of them that all have like all-American type seasons. Maybe only 1 will. But I promise you, like, out of all that group, there'll be one of those guys will have be an all-American candidate. And then there'll at least be 2 other guys that are like, man, these guys are playing at a really, really, really high level. And it might be all 4.
Yeah. It's an exciting position, maybe the most exciting position on the field in terms of just like the talent that they have and the level of play that they can play with.
Where would you rank it on the team?
The linebackers?
Yeah. Would it be your 1?
Not 1, because one group has Jeremiah Love on it,
Yes.
Like that's hard. It's probably 2. I have to talk about this later with Chris and MB, but I think it's 2. It might be 2. It's hard because corner has Leonard Moore also. Like that's a really good group. I think. But just in terms of the four guys, like if you look at the four corners versus the four linebackers, I think the linebackers are better across the board. You know,
Yeah.
like I just like if you rank them, like I think Leonard Moore is first, and then I think it's probably Bowen, KVA, Gray, you know, and then it's the next two after that, where it's like then it's Osbury, Sneed, or Sneed, Osbury in whatever order. I just think I don't know. I just think the upside because the thing is like KVA could be just Leonard Moore who didn't have to play as many snaps. He wasn't forced into it. You know.
This reminds me. Next week we should probably do the top 25 before the season.
The top 25 players.
Yeah.
When camp breaks. Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call. All right. Here's a super chat from Chief Brody, which is good because it transitions into the quarterbacks and not just that, but the exact type of conversation that I want to have about the quarterbacks. Chief Brody says Freeman is scared to let someone sling it deep unless they're absolutely money, and Carr isn't yet. Will be Kenny and will be dink and dunk plus quarterback run. I don't think this is true from the reporting that we've heard is that they're making mistakes. The quarterbacks are making mistakes, but it's because they're pushing the ball and Notre Dame wants them to push the ball. So I don't think that's true. I think that
it also is the point of camp to see if the guys are like that.
I think that the difference, and I think I know where this comes from, and maybe I'm wrong about this, Chief Brody, you can correct me, but I know that Pete Sampson and Matt Fortuna on the Independent were talking about how CJ is always looking to hit that shot. He's always trying to go deep. And sometimes it's like you have the check down, you know? And we have heard that CJ Carr is pressing a little bit in camp. And I think, and this is where I think a camp competition can kind of muddy the waters in terms of the best quarterback, because CJ is the type of person, he wants to go win the job. He wants to win it. He doesn't want to win by default or whatever. He wants to go show I am the best quarterback. And in doing so, you said it yourself, you know, he threw an interception to Tay Johnson that was a bad interception on the first day. And then 5 plays later, he tried again. And this time, Tay Johnson made a great play, right? He missed super play on his part, intercepted the ball. But CJ went after it again, right? And I think because he wants to win it. He like to me the tightness or whatever sort of nerves or pressing or whatever, I think it's pressing because he wants to be a playmaker and he's trying to make plays. And I think what could happen here is I think after the competition's over, and by the way, like just because Kenny Minchie is making better decisions with like when to dump it off and when not to, that doesn't mean he's not slinging the ball too. I don't view either of these guys as a safe option game manager type. I don't view them that way. I think they both want to chuck the ball and go deep. I think it's in both of their DNA. So I don't think one is like a game manager type at all. And I don't mean it like game manager in a negative connotation. I think people know what I'm talking about with that. So that's where I'm coming from is I think CJ specifically is trying to win the job. And in doing so, he's being a little bit more aggressive than maybe the game plan would call for. And once the competition ends, and they start installing game plan, then I think we might see a good bit better decision making from both of these guys. I think they're both trying to beat each other, and that's why we're seeing some mistakes. That's kind of my read on what's going on. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, Jamie.
Well, I definitely think that's probably the case, but I think the problem is that that's not winning the job. That is actually probably helping him lose the job.
Right.
If he doesn't win the job, it's because of that kind of mentality. You can't have that. Like that is not. One of the things that the reason why, and I'm writing about this on 6 Thoughts, so I'm kind of stepping on it, but PFF, they have the big time throw metric, right? Which who knows exactly what they consider a big time throw or whatever. But I think it's a good thing to look at because it's like, how many times did you make a throw that was like usually like a deep ball or like a really like high difficulty, like tight window throw or something like that. And, if you look at Riley Leonard last year, he was 31st in percentage.
Yeah.
Big time throw out of power 4 quarterbacks. So it's like out of like 70 something, 74, I think was who had over 150 dropbacks. He was 31st. So average, average there. But you add in the running, he was only sacked 19 times in 16 games. He finished 7th in adjusted completion percentage and had the 11th lowest turnover worthy play percentage. And you put all that, and then you're like, wow, this is part of the reason why Notre Dame scored so many points. Because if you try to just win it and you try to do exactly what he did in the Northern Illinois game and throw that ball when he had no business throwing that ball, that's how you lose games. It is. And that's the thing that there's a difference between playing to win and playing safe, because it doesn't have to be the sexy play. It doesn't have to be the winning play. It just has to be the right play. And there's a balance between that. And of course you want to see a guy make an incredible throw. And I'm not talking about this isn't just for CJ Carr. This is for Kenny Minchie. This is for all quarterbacks. You just have to understand that sometimes the best choice is to live to fight another day. If it's 2nd and 10 or it's 2nd and 7, and you're getting what you think you have a shot at a deep ball, but then you see that hey, this is not the coverage for it, and it's only going to be a small percentage of you dropping that in the bucket. Sometimes you got to just hit the check down. Yeah. And guess what? And make it 3rd and 3. Sometimes that's the right call. It's not always the right call, but there were points that's one thing that people I think didn't really talk about enough about what I saw from both those guys in the spring game, which I thought was really encouraging. Was there were points where, CJ threw the one bad interception, shouldn't have thrown that, right? And obviously that was a play that he probably should want to have back. But there's another play later on their red zone. There's a play. No one was right there, or his first read wasn't there, and he was getting pressured, and he stepped up and he ran, and he got 3 yards. Guess what? They scored a touchdown 2 plays later. It's just, you have to know when is the right time to push it. It's 4th down. You don't have any other, you have to throw this ball. Yeah, you're throwing it, right? It's 1st and 10. It's not there, or it might be there. It's a very small percent. Sometimes you don't throw that ball. And that's all great quarterbacks know that. I don't care who it is. Josh Allen's MVP, he has to know, and there has to be a cut down of some of his mistakes, or else he wouldn't be an MVP, no matter how talented he is. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes. These guys can do so many great things off script, but it's the stuff that they do within the structure of the play, and then the decisions they make on top of it, where they avoid a sack, they throw the ball away, they protect the football, that makes them the top guys. Because there's a difference between the most exciting guy and the top guys. And I look at it Arkansas, perfect example. Taylon Green, guy 6'6", 230, got a rocket launcher for an arm, rushed for over 800 yards last year. In terms of his speed, he's the fastest quarterback in the country in terms of what his measured speed on the field is. So you think about that and you're like, this guy is a 1st round pick. He's one of those guys that has all this. This is one of these things that always bug me. So Sam Pittman, their head coach, said, we were a top 10 offense in college football last year. He said this at SEC Media Days. And I was like, is this what? No, they weren't. And then I looked at it, and according to total offense, they were per game. But that's why that's a BS stat, and why no one should ever take that stat. Because guess what? They were 11th in yards per play, which are okay, that's good. They were 54th in points per drive. 54th. You shouldn't put that many yards up on the board and not score. You're not scoring, then that is a product of decision-making and all these kind of things. Well, guess what? He had the 11th highest percentage of big-time throws. This is me stepping on more 6 thoughts, but I don't care. Whatever. He's making the podcast better.
It's 6 thoughts, not 1 thought. There's tons of info in there, guys.
But he also he fumbled 12 times, more than any other quarterback in the country. He had the most fumbles out of any quarterback in the country. He was sacked 32 times. That's bottom 10. And some of those were plays that, like, maybe the protection wasn't good. There's a whole bunch of plays where the protection wasn't good for Riley Leonard, and he didn't get sacked. He was able to avoid those sacks, not take sacks and those things. Those plays are huge. Those hidden yardage plays, they add up over the course of the game. So whoever it is, like, yes, of course you want to see more great throws, and you want to see this too. It doesn't matter if, like, you make the highlights or whatever. It matters if you win. And especially in games like that, like Riley Leonard had you want to see him do more. You wanted to see him push the ball down the field more, make more tough throws. But when it came down to when they were in the playoff and they needed him to make throws, they needed him to make that hit phase on that post route against Indiana. They need him to throw that bullet to Jane Greathouse on Indiana, 3rd and 6. It's a tight window. They need him to make the throw to Greathouse against Penn State. They need him to make the throw to Aeneas Williams down the sideline. He made those throws in the moment because he could do that in the moment, and he knew that those were the times to do that. You want to see guys make it, or go into the Texas A&M game. The 50-50 ball to Bo Collins, the back shoulder. That was a big-time throw in a big-time moment. He never threw the ball anywhere close to down the field in that entire game. But that time of game, it called for that, and he did it.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see from these quarterbacks. They don't have to come out and be, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, any of these guys right away. You got to be you. So have your talent and be confident in your talent. But this team is ready to roll. It's set up to be a national championship contender. Don't let ego of you trying to win the job, or you trying to do this, I want to be the guy. It's okay to be the guy who is, the navigator instead of the driver right away. And you graduate to that driver. And I think that is a really, really important part, that it's probably hard because it's like you want to be. Those guys were the guy. Both of those guys in high school. They're the guy. CJ Carr has probably been the guy on every single sports team he played on since he was like in 5th grade or something, right? So it's hard to get out of that mentality. And I'm not to say he won't be that guy for Notre Dame, but you can't force it to happen. It has to happen organically, and you have to make the right decisions. And I think that I think is the most important thing that these guys need to know. And I'm sorry that was like a super long rant, but I had to get it off my chest.
No, that's good. That's good for you to look. We want you to get things off your chest, Jamie. That's why you're the man. That's why you're Jamie University. Took us to school. There's a balance, right? There's always a balance, and the quarterback, they have to learn this. And by the way, please, quarterbacks, okay, err on the side of I'm trying to be a playmaker guy. And then, because Mike Denbrock can reel him back in, because here's the other part of this. Things get figured out. Coaches know how to figure things out. They know how to set their teams up. Mike Denbrock is very experienced at this. Like, he knows how to build an offense that is ready to win. I mean, look what they did against Texas A&M last year. Anthony Knapp. There were memes all over the place. He's going to get planted in the turf. R.I.P. Anthony Knapp against, Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart and Shamar Turner and on and on and on, right? The entire conversation all last year was the lack of experience. 6 total starts on Notre Dame's offensive line. They won the game in the 4th quarter running the ball. Teams figure it out. Good teams figure it out. Good coaching staffs, they can figure out how to win games, right? So for me, and like, I know that our last show, people kind of took away, like they had negative feelings about the quarterback situation or whatever. We're just telling you where it stands, where we heard it stands, right? These things change in real time, but also we both kind of know things get worked out on football teams all the time. They know how to do this. Notre Dame's coaches have shown they know how to solve problems, okay? They will put together a new offense, right? Now, look, that isn't to say that the problems don't exist or that things aren't as great as everyone would want them to be, or, the reports aren't exactly what they want them to be. But like, this is all normal parts of training camp, especially when you have young quarterbacks, you know. And I think something that we probably should have prepped people for is like, hey, it could get ugly. And I think it was kind of coded in some of the things that we said, but we weren't explicit enough. And, you know, I blame myself, Jamie. I blame myself. But it's like, we should have said like, hey, these are two young quarterbacks. It might not sound as good as we want it to sound, but that doesn't mean that the product isn't going to be exactly what it needs to be, you know, and the product is all that matters. Right. And if you want a good product for what, your social media site, Jamie, for your website, for your small business or whatever it might be, then you go to VSR Media. Founded by Notre Dame Football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. I think that there was a conversation going on in the chat about CJ Carr's mental makeup. I'm going to tell you right now, I am just simply not concerned about him as far as being a gamer and as far as being like a mentally tough kid, because I am not. Look, I'll always talk about this. I watched one of the more impressive things, and something that really sold me on him was, again, that playoff game against, I've probably referenced this like 10 times. Doesn't really matter to me. Reference it again. I can't remember who the playoff game was against. It was against the team that was definitely better than them up front. The opposing defense, their front, kicked the butt of his offensive line. They lost the game, I want to say like 56-42 or 49 or something like that. CJ Carr threw, I think, 5 or 6 touchdown passes. He had to be so good on every single drive where he's running around, like running to create just like a throwaway so that the next time he could come back and make a great throw. And if you have it in that situation and he was like a junior, when you have it then, that doesn't go away. That's not gone, right? The fact that he's pressing, to me, is a result of him being almost too much of a competitor, right? He needs to rein it in a little bit. He needs to harness it. Okay. But I'm not concerned about him from a mental standpoint of like, he's not afraid of it. He needs to rein it in, is basically what it is. And maybe he can't, right? And maybe Kenny Minchie is better at it. Cause Kenny Minchie's got his own thing going on where he's also a competitor in my mind. I'm not worried about these guys being afraid. I just think they need to be able to harness their emotions. And whoever does that might be the ultimate winner of the job. Whoever can do that in the projection of the coaches. Because that's another thing. Once games start, the coaches think they know what they're getting, but you can't know everything about that stuff. So that's kind of where I come out on that. Where do you come out on it, Jamie?
I mean, first of all, I think those kind of things it is important to have that kind of context with that, because when you see that, and obviously it's a different level and the pressure gets more, and there's, it's different when you're on the road at Miami and all that compared to, you got, Reuben Bain chasing you down instead of some poor high school kid from Michigan, right? Like it obviously is different, but all of that kind of stuff and that experience, dealing with adversity, I think is so important, which is also too why one of the things that everyone talks about, like multi-sport athletes and what that means and like how that kind of translate and help someone as an athlete. What I think probably doesn't get talked about enough is the experience you gain just from all these other experiences competing and getting into situations where, hey, it's like you're in the state championship for basketball. You are, Pee-wee hockey, and you are in a tournament against like the top team from the state or something like that. all of these things accumulate over the years and teach people about like rising up to the occasion of the moment, or like knowing that like, hey, I've felt what it felt like to lose this game. So now I need to like, what I need to work harder. I need to be able to do this. All of these kind of things are like really like not talked about enough, like when it comes to like gaining that experience. And I always thought one of the things with Phil Jerkovic, how and why it never, that I never thought about, because he was always a winner and he always just won. Maybe the whole thing was he just needed to lose and understand what it takes to what happens when you lose and how you respond to it. And I think like that can be a thing where if someone either can learn from it and deal with it or not. And I don't know for sure that like, you know, like Carr is, he's the right guy because he's learned from this, or he did this in this situation, or Minchie, because Minchie got hurt as a senior in high school. Well, he dealt with that adversity and that has helped shape him, whatever. I don't know these things for sure. Right. I don't know exactly like what is going to translate and what's going to be there. I just know that the whole point is you get these guys there because they've had these experiences, and one of those guys will rise to the occasion, and that's what you got to hope for, and that's what you're there. And I think too, like one of the reasons why, like, it's funny, guys. I'm almost wondering to the point why no one has brought up Steve Angeli to this point, or like I haven't seen it. Maybe some people have. I've missed it. Maybe
in like the chat,
or just in general, just in terms of like, you know, because there were a lot of people who were like Angeli, like everyone has their own person, right? And there was definitely some fans who were like, you know, Angeli. But part of the reason why Angeli was like able to go in that situation in Penn State, well, I mean, the guy had played. It's not the same as going in the Orange Bowl, but he had won a state championship, you know, and he had done these things that he had. Obviously, if you get to that point, you would face some kind of adversity and done these kind of things. And so the moment wasn't too big for him. And that's what you just hope for these guys, is that they're going to grow and get better. But as they grow, you have to learn from these moments, but the moment can't be too big for you. And that's also too where like the other leaders have to be there to be like, hey, you're good. We got you. We're going to do this. It's like, guess what? Like, hey, maybe you missed that throw. Maybe you made the mistake. Well, I'm going to get you back. Defense is going to get you back. We're going to get the ball back. Or, you know, Love is like, well, who cares? I'm taking the next one 98 or whatever, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that is what is football. And that's like team glory. That is team glory. That is the kind of thing. And that makes everybody better.
Yeah. There's a viewing on Friday, and there's a possibility of some news there. If there is something that for us to talk about, I'll fire up the pod machine and we'll do a fan show, and we'll answer questions from you guys in the chat or whoever, whatever you want to talk about. And we can talk about that. Maybe there's some quarterback news or whatever kind of news that comes out from that. So look for a show on Friday at some point. I'll stay tuned on what time that might be. But thank you everyone for tuning on today. If you like what you hear, please hit a like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. Hopefully we'll talk to you on Friday. If not, have a good rest of your day. We'll be back maybe on Sunday as well, because we might get some Sunday news. Jamie, Marcus Freeman is talking after practice. And so it's about when we think there might be a quarterback. So stay tuned. Hit the notification bell. So whatever is going live. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.